Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the Detox Health channel. We have so many more health deep dives planned for you all about a variety of health topics.
Yes, and this is a fantastic way to gain some knowledge about these health topics without having to reread a bunch of research papers and articles and things like that.
Exactly. It's really a shortcut to knowledge. And if you like what you're hearing so far, please consider hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future deep dives.
So today we are diving deep into a topic that impacts so many of us on a daily basis.
That's right. We're talking about tea versus coffee.
One of life's big questions.
Yeah, we're going to look at how much caffeine they have, the health benefits they share and where they might differ, and even some tips on how to prepare them for maximum health benefits.
That's right.
And all of this is going to be based on the research that we have dug through for this deep dive.
That's right. So think about it this way. You probably have your go-to morning beverage, right?
Right.
Do you ever stop and really consider what's actually going on inside that cup?
Yeah. And what's it doing to your body?
Well, that's what we're going to find out.
All right, so let's start with caffeine.
Yes.
Because I feel like that's what's on most people's minds when they're choosing between tea and coffee.
Right.
So generally speaking, coffee has more caffeine than tea.
Yes, that's right.
And we're talking about brewed coffee here. We're looking at around 95 milligrams of caffeine in just an 8-ounce cup.
Yeah, that's compared to black tea, which is about 47 milligrams.
Okay, so that's a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
And then green tea's even lower.
Yes, it's in the 20 to 45 milligram range.
Okay, and what about white tea?
So white tea actually has the widest range of caffeine from as little as 6 milligrams to as much as 60.
Wow, so that's a huge difference.
Yeah, and it all depends on the type of white tea and how it's prepared.
That's really interesting.
And what's fascinating is that these numbers aren't set in stone.
Oh, really?
The amount of caffeine in your cup can actually vary quite a bit based on a few things.
Okay, like what?
Well, where the tea leaves or the coffee beans were grown, for example.
Oh, interesting. So different regions?
Different regions, exactly. And also the specific variety. You know, some varieties are naturally higher in caffeine than others.
And then how you prepare it.
Exactly. Steeping time, water temperature, it all makes a difference.
Okay, so let's dive into the different types of tea a little bit more.
Sure.
So we talked about black tea averaging around 47 milligrams of caffeine, but it can go up to 90.
That's right. It's because black tea leaves go through an oxidation process that gives them that really strong flavor.
Right. And it seems like that process also affects the caffeine content.
Exactly.
Now, green tea skips that oxidation process, right?
It does, and that's why it has a lower caffeine content, typically between 20 and 45 milligrams.
And white tea that's also unoxidized.
Yeah, but remember, white tea has that really wide range of caffeine from 6 to 60 milligrams.
So you can't just assume that all white tea is going to be low in caffeine.
Exactly. You have to do your research.
Okay, and what about some of those other popular teas like matcha?
Oh, yes, matcha, that vibrant green powdered tea. It has a good amount of caffeine, about 35 milligrams per half teaspoon.
Okay, so even though it's a smaller serving,
It's quite concentrated.
it still has a good kick.
It does. And then there's yerba mate.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
It's made from steeping twigs and leaves, and it has about 85 milligrams of caffeine per 8 ounces.
Okay, so that's similar to coffee.
It is.
And for people who want to avoid caffeine altogether.
Then you have herbal teas,
Right.
which are practically caffeine-free.
So many options.
There are.
Now, we talked about how the preparation of tea can really affect the caffeine level.
Yes.
So how long you steep it, how hot the water is.
It all makes a difference.
We have some data here from our sources.
Oh, yes. Let's hear it.
A Tazo Earl Grey tea bag, steeped for just 1 minute, had 40 milligrams of caffeine.
Okay.
But when it was steeped for 3 minutes, using the same hot water, it jumped to 59 milligrams.
Wow, that's almost a 20 milligram difference.
It is, and then we had a Stash green tea that went from 16 milligrams at 1 minute to 36 milligrams at 3 minutes.
So if you like to brew your tea for a longer time.
You're definitely getting more caffeine.
Exactly. You're essentially customizing your caffeine intake with your steeping habits.
That's really interesting.
It is.
Okay, so let's move on to coffee.
All right.
We talked about that average of 95 milligrams per 8-ounce cup.
Right.
Now, there's this common belief that dark roast coffee has more caffeine.
Yeah, a lot of people think that.
What we found is that the roasting level itself doesn't actually affect the caffeine content of the individual bean.
That's right.
However, dark roast beans tend to be less dense.
That's true.
So you might end up using more of them to make your coffee.
Yeah, you might scoop a little bit more.
Which could lead to a slightly higher caffeine content overall.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay, now what about espresso?
Ah, espresso, the concentrated shot of energy.
Exactly.
A single shot of espresso at Starbucks, which is about 1 ounce, has around 58 milligrams of caffeine.
Okay, and a lot of lattes and cappuccinos have a double shot.
That's right. So you're looking at around 116 milligrams of caffeine in those drinks?
Wow.
Yeah, it's a significant amount.
Now, what if you're trying to limit your caffeine intake?
Well, then you have decaf options.
Right, but decaf still has some caffeine, right?
It does, but it varies quite a bit.
Okay.
Decaf espresso, for example, can have anywhere from 3 to 16 milligrams in a 16-ounce serving,
Okay.
whereas regular decaf coffee usually has less than 3 milligrams in an 8-ounce cup.
Okay, and what about decaf tea?
Decaf tea usually falls somewhere in between those two.
Interesting.
So it really does vary.
Yeah, it's not just a simple yes or no answer
Not at all.
when it comes to decaf.
Right.
Okay, so we talk about how steeping time affects caffeine content in tea.
Yes.
What about the preparation of coffee?
So with coffee, the temperature of the water is really important.
Okay.
Hot water, ideally between 195 and 205 degrees Fahrenheit, is the best for extracting caffeine.
Okay.
And then you have cold brew, which a lot of people think is lower in caffeine because it's brewed cold.
Right.
But actually, cold brew can be more caffeinated because of that long steeping process.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's typically steeped for 8 to 24 hours and often uses a higher ratio of grounds to water.
So you could end up with more caffeine.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So the main takeaway here is that coffee generally has more caffeine than tea.
Right.
But the type of tea you choose and how you prepare both drinks can really influence your caffeine intake.
And it's important to be mindful of that.
Absolutely, especially if you're sensitive to caffeine.
Okay, so speaking of caffeine, how much is actually safe for you to consume in a day?
Well, both the USDA and the European Food Safety Authority recommend staying below 400 milligrams per day.
Okay, so that's a good number to keep in mind.
It is. And they also suggest limiting single doses to under 200 milligrams.
Okay.
Or about 1.4 milligrams per pound of body weight.
So those are some good guidelines to follow.
They are.
All right, so let's move on to the health benefits of tea and coffee.
Yes, because there's a lot more to these drinks than just caffeine.
Right, they're not just about that energy boost.
Exactly.
And if you're enjoying this deep dive into the world of tea and coffee, don't forget to subscribe to the Detox Health channel for more.
That's right.
So what are some of the shared health benefits?
Well, both tea and coffee are rich in antioxidants,
Okay.
particularly a type called polyphenols.
Now I've heard those.
You've probably heard of EGCG, which is found in green tea.
Yes.
And coffee is a great source of chlorogenic acid.
Okay, so why are those important?
So antioxidants are really important for protecting your body from damage caused by free radicals.
Free radicals.
Yes, so free radicals are these unstable molecules that can damage your cells over time.
Okay, I see.
You can think of them like rust forming on metal.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And that damage from free radicals can contribute to various diseases and even the aging process.
So antioxidants essentially neutralize those free radicals.
Exactly. They're like little scavengers going around and cleaning up the damage.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
So by drinking tea and coffee, we're getting those antioxidants.
And potentially protecting ourselves from chronic diseases.
Like what?
Well, some studies have linked tea and coffee consumption to a lower risk of certain cancers and type 2 diabetes.
Really?
Yes. And some research even suggests that they might help you live longer.
Oh, wow.
There's data showing a lower risk of all-cause mortality in people who regularly drink tea and coffee.
That's pretty incredible.
It is.
Now, what about weight management?
There's some interesting research there, too.
Oh, really?
It seems that the chlorogenic acid in coffee and the EGCG in green tea,
Okay.
along with the caffeine itself,
Uh-huh.
might actually have some weight loss benefits.
Okay. How so?
Well, they could help by reducing your appetite.
Okay, so you feel less hungry.
Exactly. And they might also increase the number of calories you burn.
Oh, wow.
And some studies suggest that they could even activate brown adipose tissue.
What's that?
It's a type of good fat that helps your body burn more energy.
Oh, so it's like turning up your metabolism.
Kind of, yeah.
That's fascinating.
It is.
So both tea and coffee have some shared health advantages because of their antioxidant content.
That's right. But they also have some unique benefits.
Okay, so let's talk about those. What are some of the unique health benefits of coffee?
Well, coffee seems to be particularly good for your liver.
Okay.
Studies have shown that drinking coffee might lower your risk of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and liver fibrosis.
Oh, wow. That's great news for coffee drinkers.
It is, and since coffee generally has more caffeine, it might also be better for boosting athletic performance and energy levels.
Okay, so if you're looking for that extra edge in your workout,
Coffee could be a good choice.
makes sense.
And it might also improve things like reaction time power and aerobic capacity.
So it really can enhance your physical performance.
It can.
Now, what about tea?
So tea, particularly green tea, contains an amino acid called L-theanine.
L-theanine.
Yes. And this compound is really interesting because it seems to promote a state of calm alertness.
Calm alertness.
Yeah. So you get the focus and attention boost without the jitters that sometimes come with caffeine.
Oh, that's nice.
It is. And some research suggests that L-theanine might also reduce stress and anxiety and even lower the risk of depression.
So it's like a mood booster.
Kind of, yeah. It can definitely have those calming effects.
That's great.
And interestingly, black tea has also been linked to a reduced risk of depression in some studies.
So it's not just green tea.
No, both black and green tea seem to have those potential mood benefits.
Okay, and what about heart health?
Well, regular tea consumption across different types might protect against heart disease by helping to lower LDL cholesterol levels.
Oh, that's good to know.
It is.
So it's not just about the caffeine kick with tea and coffee.
No, not at all. They both have some really compelling health benefits.
Right, but like anything we consume, there are also some potential downsides to consider.
Absolutely.
So what are some of those downsides?
Well, one of the biggest things to watch out for is what you're adding to your tea or coffee.
Right, all those sweeteners and creamers.
Exactly. Those can really negate the health benefits by adding a lot of extra calories and sugar.
Yeah, and that can lead to weight gain, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and even dental problems.
Exactly. So it's really important to be mindful of what you're adding to your drinks.
Okay, and of course we have to talk about caffeine overload.
Yes, because while moderate caffeine intake can be beneficial too much, can definitely have some negative effects.
Right, like anxiety, trouble sleeping.
Exactly. And it can also worsen existing anxiety, panic disorder, and insomnia symptoms.
Okay.
And it's important to remember that caffeine can be habit forming.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So some people might experience dependence and withdrawal symptoms if they suddenly stop consuming caffeine.
So it's important to be aware of your own caffeine sensitivity.
And absolutely. And to listen to your body.
Okay, now I remember reading something in our research about unfiltered coffee.
Oh, yes. That's an interesting point.
Something about it raising cholesterol levels.
So coffee naturally contains oils called caffestyl and kawil. And these oils have been shown to potentially increase blood cholesterol levels.
Okay, so that's not good.
Not ideal. But the good news is that using a paper filter when you brew your coffee can significantly reduce the amount of those oils.
Oh, so that's an easy fix.
It is.
Okay, good to know. Now, here's something that I found really surprising.
What's that?
Drinking very hot beverages like tea or coffee can actually increase your risk of esophageal cancer.
Yeah, that's right. It seems that temperatures above around 140 degrees Fahrenheit can be damaging to the esophagus.
So we should really let our drinks cool down a bit before we enjoy them.
Exactly. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. And what about black tea and iron absorption?
Ah, yes. So if you have low iron levels, excessive black tea consumption could potentially interfere with how your body absorbs iron from food.
So that's something to be aware of.
It is, especially if you're already prone to iron deficiency.
Okay, so it sounds like the way we prepare our tea and coffee is really important for our health.
It is.
So what are some tips for healthier consumption?
Well, like we mentioned, using a paper coffee filter is a great way to reduce those cholesterol-raising oils.
Right.
And switching to low-fat milk or creamer can significantly cut down on calories and fat.
Okay.
And perhaps the most obvious tip is to skip the added sugar.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is.
But if you want a little sweetness,
you can try adding some cinnamon or nutmeg to your coffee instead.
oh, I like that.
Yeah, and those spices might actually have some benefits related to type 2 diabetes and obesity. That's what some studies suggest.
That's awesome.
And for green tea, try adding a squeeze of lemon juice.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
It might help your body absorb more of the beneficial antioxidants.
So it's like enhancing the health benefits.
Exactly.
So many great tips.
Yeah, these small adjustments can really make a big difference for your overall health.
That's great. And speaking of health,
Yes.
we have so many more deep dives planned for you here on the Detox Health channel. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out.
I've definitely hit that subscribe button.
So back to our main topic, tea versus coffee.
The age-old question.
Which one is healthier?
Well, based on everything we've learned, they're both generally healthy and safe beverages.
Right. They both have caffeine and antioxidants.
Exactly.
But if you're someone who struggles with anxiety or has trouble sleeping, green tea might be a better choice.
Yeah, because it has less caffeine, and that L-theanine can have calming effects.
Okay.
But if you're looking for a bigger energy boost or want to enhance your physical performance, coffee might be a better option.
Because of the higher caffeine content.
Exactly.
So it really comes down to your individual needs and preferences.
It does. How sensitive you are to caffeine, your health goals, even just what you enjoy drinking more.
And it's important to consume both in moderation.
Absolutely. And to be aware of how caffeine affects you personally.
Okay, so to wrap things up, we've taken a deep dive into the world of tea and coffee.
We have.
We've looked at the caffeine content, the antioxidant power, the unique health benefits of each, and the potential downsides.
And we've given you some tips for preparing them in a healthier way.
Exactly. And this deep dive has really given you a condensed version of all the information that's out there.
It saved you a lot of time and effort.
So now that you have all this knowledge,
What are you going to do with it?
yeah, which beverage do you think is a better fit for you?
And maybe this deep dive has inspired you to try some new types of tea or coffee.
Right. Maybe you'll discover a new favorite.
That would be great.
We hope you found this deep dive insightful. And if you'd like to explore more health topics like this,
Be sure to subscribe to the Detox Health channel.
we have so many more health podcasts planned for you all, designed to help you gain valuable knowledge without having to do all the research yourself.
It's a great way to learn.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.